Hi, I'm James Surowiecki, the New Yorker's business columnist, and we're here today with Alan Mulally, the CEO of Ford Motor Company. Ford, unlike its two major domestic competitors, General Motors and Chrysler, is the one American automaker not to have taken government money to survive. And Alan Mulally, who has been CEO of Ford since 2006, has been acclaimed in recent years for the turnaround effort at Ford. And so we are here to talk to him today about that and the state of the auto industry and perhaps the state of the economy more generally. But I want to start by maybe taking you back a little bit and asking the question that I think is on a lot of Americans' minds, which is what happened to the auto industry, to the American auto industry?
When I was recruited by Ford, one of the questions I asked myself, and I also asked Bill Ford, was exactly that. You know, what was the state of the industry? What was the state of Ford? And I really wanted to understand that if I were going to leave Boeing and come to Ford. And my summary of that, and clearly this is a summary, is that for many years the U.S. automobile industry, led by GM and Chrysler and Ford, have been decreasing market share. They've been gradually being less relevant in the United States. They've had great operations around the world, but in the United States, the U.S. opened up the market to world-class companies. And these are terrific companies. They're very competitive. And so over the years, the market share of these three Detroit companies, or the big three, have gradually decreased. And the main reason, I think, is that, one, the competition, and two, in more recent years, that these three companies focused on the larger vehicles that clearly the U.S. Citizens and consumers wanted. But that also left a very big opening for the smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles. And of course, the Japanese and now the Koreans really satisfied the market requirements. What really happened in the last 3 years was, of course, the slowdown in the global economy, the slowdown in the U.S. economy, the tightening of credit, and the financial crisis, and then the fundamental drop in demand for automobiles for all manufacturers.
Right.
Never have seen a drop like this. You know, from 18 million units down to 8.5 million units, right. And there are very few companies that can survive that kind of a decrease in demand, because you just have to move so aggressively to respond to that.
Let's take Ford specifically. When you came here, what were the things that needed to be changed at Ford?
Some of the really big decisions we made, one was to focus on the Ford brand, because when I arrived we had Aston Martin and Jaguar and Land Rover and Mazda and Volvo, and of course Ford and Lincoln and Mercury. But clearly the strategy was a house of brands as opposed to focusing on one. Well, clearly when you're in a situation like this, the most important thing is that you just have absolute brand clarity to the consumer. So 85% of the business was Ford, so we divested all those other brands, and we absolutely have a laser focus on Ford. Another decision that we made was that we had focused in the past on the larger vehicles,
right.
And the consumers loved them. And you know, an F-150 is the #1 selling vehicle in the United States.
Even
still
today,
is.
it still is.
Still is.
Right.
And they are world-class vehicles. The consumers love them. But clearly, going forward, our point of view was that we need to be in every market segment, whether it was small, medium, or large, a car or utility or truck, and then also be best in class, no matter what the size of the vehicle was. That we need to be best in class with the best in the world. And so that was another big decision that we made. You know, every crisis is also an opportunity.
Right.
And so, you know, many firms will hunker down, stop investing,
yeah.
And they might look okay for the near term, but they're really hurting themselves to creating value in the long term. So the thing I just knew we had to do was to keep investing and accelerate the development of the new cars and trucks and utilities. And so during the worst of times, we accelerated our investment in the future. And so now, that's why you see us in the position we are today,
right.
Where we have sufficient liquidity, but we also have arguably the finest product line that Ford has ever had for our customers.
So let's talk a little bit about that decision to kind of invest across the range. And you know, it's sort of the old General Motors model. You know, we have a car for every person, every purpose, basically. Was there any thought to saying, let's focus on, you know, 2 or 3 market segments instead of trying to let's try to become a different kind of company instead of being essentially what the American automakers have always been, which is kind of big brands, essentially?
Well, clearly we thought of different models for Ford, but it's not so much about big, but it's about focus. And your analogy with GM is very interesting because we're the antithesis of that. GM had 13 brands.
Right.
Now you can imagine what it means to manage 13 brands, and that's a business model and that's a strategy.
Right.
But just kind of relying on my experience at Boeing, we have a family of small, medium, and large 737s, 757s, 67s, 777s, 747s, but they are global products. They go worldwide.
Right.
Well, here was Ford that had phenomenal global assets. We had small, medium, and cars everywhere around the world that are world class, and we had great trucks and SUVs in the United States. So the decision we made, the strategy we decided on, was we were going to be in every market segment with the Ford brand, and the consumers could get the very best in quality, fuel efficiency, and safety, but get the vehicle they really did want. We would have global scale, which would bring even more value to each of the markets around the world. And we are the third largest automobile company in the world.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize that 60% of our vehicles go to consumers outside the United States. Right. And so what we really want to do is to capitalize on the global presence that we had, the global diversity, the intellectual capital, and be the full service, full family producer.
So I want to talk about this question of time because you burned through $21 billion in cash last year. You burned through $3+ billion in the first quarter. You're not projecting that you're going to be profitable to 2011. You look at the best-selling vehicles, and you have one car. There's one car on it, right? The Fusion in the top 10. What's it like to run a business where you're going to be losing money for a pretty significant period of time, but you're also, I guess, confident that eventually that's going to change? Can you talk a little bit about how you do that? How you get up in the morning every day knowing, okay, we lose another 20 million today, whatever it is, but we're confident that if we stick to the plan, this is actually gonna work?
Well, absolutely, but it is the plan. Okay. In business, the most important thing is that you have a strategy and you have a plan.
Right.
That maximizes your opportunities and minimizes your risk. The next thing you do is you get together a plan to get back to profitably growing. Okay. Now, you could always do that by decreasing your investments in the new vehicles to look better financially in the near term.
Right.
So the most important thing you do is you lay out what you think the revenue stream is going to be. That's based on your lineup of your cars, what your cost structure needs to be, which we've clearly worked. What's the financing to support that transformation? And then that glide slope that you described, you go from losing money to a plan to make money. In our case, we're going to be profitable in 2011, but more importantly, we're going to be there with a full product line that's best in class, and we're making money on each one of them, which allows us then to...
You're actually going to make money on each of the cars you make?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Something that car makers have not done for a long time.
Well, and again, back to your question, so the point is profitable growth. So what does a plan look like on revenue and your costs and your product to profitably grow the business? So when we say that we're going to get back to profitability in 2011, that's an incredible accomplishment, because not only are you profitable, but we're doing it with a full product line, which is why we're not rushing to get there too soon.
Do you have to earn your way back because of the Pinto and because of the various missteps that American auto companies have made?
Because we didn't have a competitive cost structure in the United States, which we do now, we didn't have a consistency of purpose in cars. Well, we work with the UAW, with the unions, with all of the stakeholders, with the suppliers, and we absolutely can make cars now in the United States, and we can make them profitably. So now, we did lose a generation of people that just didn't participate in cars in the United States. But having said that, we had a few that people absolutely loved, like the Taurus.
Taurus, right.
It was the #1 car in the United States for 8 years. 7 million Tauri we made.
Tauri,
and so
right.
And we also have a tremendous goodwill for the Ford Motor Company. I mean, this is Ford, this is Henry Ford, this is an American icon. I mean, over 100 years of innovation, safe and efficient transportation. And so, and also we are clearly differentiated in most people's eyes because we're doing this ourselves.
You didn't take government
money. We didn't take government money. Okay. We took aggressive action to finance our operation. We're paying our loans back. We're honoring all the commitments that we have made to our suppliers and dealers.
Now, in interview you did, you told this great story about the business plan review meeting you have every week. At this meeting, you actually had people, they would present sort of what was going on, and they would color code their presentations. And you green if things were going exceptionally well, yellow if there were some problems, and red if well, that was obvious, if there were serious problems. And then at the first couple meetings, everybody just gave you green presentations, and you said, look, guys, we lost a few $1 billion. There must be something that's not going well, right? Now, and the question I had about that was, what do you think the mindset was where people thought that the thing to do was tell you that everything was going well, even though eventually, or maybe pretty soon, it was going to become clear that things were not going well?
I think it really goes back to the just the culture change and the way we run the business. And I think the following week, Mark Fields, who manages all of the Americas business, he was getting ready to launch the new, I think, the Edge at the time. And here is this chart with all of the launches that he's doing, and here is the Edge, and it's all red, big red. The room got silent.
So people were really stunned that he had.
And I started clapping. And now, of course, everybody's saying, there it is, there's a sign, right. The hook's coming, something's going to happen. And my comment to Mark and the team was, Mark, that is great visibility. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? And what else can we do as a team to help you out? So we went through the program. They had a latch on the back door that, it was still in test. It got some new data that wasn't ready to go. And then all of a sudden, the manufacturing engineer stood up and said, I saw that problem on a previous thing. I can help you on that. The finance person said, we'll get you, do you need some extra budget to take care of that right now? Tony Brown, who leads purchasing, said, I know a supplier that has had experience with that. And so the next week, I think it was red. The following week, it was yellow. Maybe the following week, it was green.
Right.
But the most important thing is it has to be safe for each of us to share, because as human beings, you're not going to share the way it really is if you're going to catch abuse or be yelled at or put down. And also, we don't take any action items, because we don't need to have a separate set of people keeping track of what we're talking about. We're going to be back together next week.
Right.
We all can remember what's going on, and we're really there to nurture the process and help solve the problems.
So one of the most important things you're rolling out in the long term is the continued investment, and you now have gotten, I think, $6 billion in loans from the federal government to expand your work on hybrid and perhaps eventually electric vehicles. Mm-hmm. What's the impulse behind putting so much money into this?
Well, our point of view is that energy is going to continue to cost us more. Okay. And energy prices will continue to go up. And so it's so important that we build products that absolutely improve the fuel efficiency year after year, forever, no matter what size vehicle it is, whether it's a fabulous Fiesta or Focus or Taurus, or whether it's a neat F-150. So we've adopted a point of view that fuel efficiency, quality, and safety and value are going to be the fundamentals that drive the consumer decisions. Also, we want to be part of the solution to the bigger issues that the United States and other countries are dealing with as far as energy independence, energy security, sustainability, manufacturing competitiveness. And so again, those pillars are the right pillars for the automobile industry. So we laid out improvements to the internal combustion engine, and then hybrids, as you mentioned, and then the move to all-electric vehicles. Okay. But with the all-electric vehicles, to have a system solution where we can tap in the electrical grids, we can generate the electricity clean, and now use the electricity clean, and do it as a system
Because that's the big challenge from an electric vehicle point of view, is not making the electric vehicle, it's finding places where people can charge them.
And generate the electricity clean,
exactly.
so that you're generating it clean and you're using it clean, and then we have really moved to energy independence and energy security. So the absolute key enablers are the batteries and this system solution. Okay. Because in the batteries that we're looking at today, for you to have a 30, 40 mile range, right. These batteries are 600-700 pounds.
It's huge, yeah.
And because that's just the state of battery technology. Now, we have some new chemistries like lithium-ion batteries, and also some variations of that looks like we'd be able to repackage it, get it in fewer cells, get the weight down, get the capability up, They'll be able to be more robust to handle cold conditions and warm conditions. And so the investment right now by everybody around the world is fundamentally on the battery side.
Would a gas tax help?
Well, gas tax is could be one important element of an integrated energy policy.
Right.
Because the most important thing that we all know is that we, the consumers, need to be involved, right?
Because we're making the choices.
Because we're making the choices.
Right.
And these are economic decisions, they're sustainability decisions, they are doing the right thing decisions. And so I'm very pleased that the debate, the discussion in the United States and around the world is really moving to a discussion about what is the right thing to do for energy independence, for energy security, for just fundamental sustainability. You know, what do we really value? And knowing where the world's going, I think that having us involved is going to accelerate that sustainable future.
And one of the concerns, I think, is that will the auto industry just become like the airline industry? You'll have some periods of profitability, but then, you know, ultimately the fixed cost problem will destroy you, whatever it is, and you'll go back and lose money, and then you'll come back. And do you have any question that this is that it's worth continuing to pour money into the auto industry here?
Well, in Ford's case, absolutely. This is a terrific business. The automobile industry is important. It's about freedom. It's about sustainability. It's about our lifestyle. The entire world wants to move up and appreciate the United States lifestyle, the innovation, the freedom that we have. And the automobile is a key part of that. Now, having said that, also integrated solutions in the big cities, mobility, rapid transit, we're going to participate in all of that because it's an integrated solution, again, everywhere around the world.
Ford has a history of getting into trouble and then getting out of it. So what is it that makes you believe that the changes you make are going to last, that the changes you make are going to be, in a sense, sustainable, so that 10 years from now we're not going to be looking back and saying, oh, they had that little renaissance when Mulally was there, but then he left and X, Y, and Z happened, and now they're back?
I would never be presumptuous enough to critique the past. And I think that fundamental answer to your question is going to be the success that we have with this new business model. Okay. And the fact that we are creating a sustainable, profitably growing business. It's absolutely focused. It's not going from one strategy to the other. It's a consistency of purpose of making the very best vehicles in the world and doing them more competitively than the competition. And so I think what's going to sustain this new business model is going to be the success that we have, and knowing that if you stay on this course and you stay focused and you just have this consistency of purpose, that you're going to create a lot of value for a lot of people going forward. And that's going to be the test.
All right. Thank you very much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Glad you're here.
Appreciate it.